When I came home that morning, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A brand new metal fence, tall and silver, stretching all around my land like a prison wall. My horses stood near the edge, snorting and pacing, confused by the barrier that hadn't been there yesterday. And hanging on the fence, flapping in the wind, was a bright red sign. Private access, HOA members only. I stood there in the dirt road, heart pounding. This was my ranch, my home, my grandfather's legacy. And now the HOA, that group of smug suburban bullies from down the hill, had fenced me in. It all started 2 years ago when I inherited the old ranch from my grandfather, Sam. He'd built it with his bare hands back in the 70s, long before any homeowners association existed in this part of town. The property stretched over 40 acres of rugged open land, oak trees, a small pond, and fields where wildflowers bloomed every spring. But when the new development, Oak Valley Estates, popped up just down the road, they decided to form an HOA. And of course, they thought they owned everything in sight. Even my dirt driveway that had run through this valley since before any of them were born. At first, I tried to be civil. When their president, a smug man named Clark Mendel, came over with his clipboard and smiled too wide to be real, he said, "We'd love to include your ranch in our community, Mr. Bennett. It'll raise everyone's property value." I laughed in his face. "You're not including anything. My land's not for sale, and it sure as hell isn't part of your HOA. Clark's smile twitched, but he didn't argue. He just said, "We'll see about that." Months passed. I ignored their letters and policy updates. Then, small things started happening. My mailboxes got knocked over. My ranch gate was found open more than once. Someone even left a note on my porch that read, "You're not above the rules." I reported it to the county sheriff, but he said it was all neighbor disputes and couldn't do much. Then one morning I woke up to find that new fence around my property. It wasn't just blocking off my ranch. It completely surrounded it. They'd fenced me in. And the only gate was at the far end of the development, guarded by a keypad lock. I called Clark immediately. "Clark, what the hell is this?" I yelled over the phone. "Oh, that?" he said, pretending to be surprised. "We just finished enclosing our community. The fence follows the old property line. If your access road happens to be inside, well, you'll just need an HOA membership to get a gate key." "You fenced off my driveway, Clark," I shouted. He gave a little sigh. Well, that smug kind people give when they think they have already won. "Then you'll need to file a petition to use the road again. We'll review it at the next board meeting next month." I hung up before I said something that'd get me arrested. For weeks, I had to use a rough back trail just to get in and out of my own ranch. My truck got scratched, my horses spooked, and every day I grew angrier. But instead of fighting them with rage, I decided to fight them with patience. I started digging through county land records, and that's when I found something they clearly hadn't checked. A small, triangular patch of land near the entrance of Oak Valley Estates. It was technically still private property, not part of the HOA's holdings. And guess what sat squarely in the middle of that patch? Their only main gate. That was the spot their entire fence opened from, the single access point into their exclusive community. And it was owned by an older couple who'd moved away years ago. Their lawyer had been managing it quietly, trying to sell it. So I made a call, and a few signatures and a check later, that little triangle of land was mine. The next week, I drove up to the gate, the one and only entry to Oak Valley Estates, and put up my own sign, "Private property, access by permission only." I changed the lock and installed my own gate system. The HOA's fancy keypad disconnected. Within an hour, Clark called. "You can't do this," he yelled, his voice cracking through the phone. "Oh, I can," I said calmly. "I own the land this gate sits on. You might want to review your maps. This is illegal. You can't block homeowners from their own property." I chuckled. "I'm not blocking anyone. You fenced me in. I'm just taking care of my own property access. The same way you said I should." He screamed threats about lawsuits, police, and community standards, but it didn't matter. By sundown, half the residents were parked outside the gate, honking, shouting, and calling their lawyers, all of them locked out of their own neighborhood. The county eventually got involved, of course, But when the records came out, it was crystal clear. The HOA had illegally fenced off my land, and their access road was built over property that didn't belong to them. When the court ordered them to remove the fence and pay damages, I didn't just accept the payout. I used it to restore my grandfather's ranch, rebuilt the old barn, repaired the pond, and even set up a small horse rescue. One day, Clark drove up again, this time humbled. He handed me a letter. "The HOA voted to dissolve," he muttered. "Guess people got tired of all this mess." I smiled. That's what happens when you build walls instead of bridges. Now, when I stand by the fence line, what's left of it anyway, I can see the wide open land just like it used to be. My horses graze freely again. The sun sets over the hills without any metal in its way. And I think of my grandfather's words, the ones he carved into the wooden gatepost decades ago. "A man's land is his freedom." Don't ever let anyone fence that in. I smile every time I see those words. Because in the end, the HOA tried to box me in. But I walked away with the key. And the land, it's still mine. Always will be. Would you like me to write 4 detailed image prompts for this story next? For YouTube thumbnails or mid-story visuals?